Okay, what we have here is a PD130, a proper drone 130, and I did open it already. It came in a gray envelope like this, and inside of the gray plastic envelope was a standard, priority mail bubble envelope, and then, inside of this bubble envelope were the two main carbon fiber pieces. You can see the top is this nice gold type carbon fiber, gold colored, and then the main frame itself. And I don't know if you could tell, but you'll see there are sections right here. The screw holes are beveled on one side and flat on the other, and the same for the top piece. You can see the bevel there. That should make for a nice clean build. And the other piece that was in there is this Ziploc baggie, which contains a 3D printed part for the video transmitter, a 3D printed part for little Pico cams, and let me go ahead and dump that in the glass container I have. And it comes with, I believe, 8 of these standoffs, and these standoffs are metal. And it also comes with 8 of these screws, which are metal, and also they have the beveled head on them, so they go nicely into the carbon fiber pieces. And then also a couple, 3 small rubber bands that somehow mount the camera in. I've never used a mount like this before, so we're going to do a little bit of learning. So those are the primary components for the PD130. I am going to be running DSys 1306 3100 kV motors. I got these from Multi-Rotor Mania. So there are the motors, along with some hardware for the motors. And of course, I have 3 more of those. And I'm going to be using a 4-in-1 ESC just because of the size of this build. Again, this will be another first for me. I've never used a 4-in-1 ESC. This it does have BL Heli on it, and I believe it has the BL Heli bootloader. At least I hope it does. And if you look at it, you can see, the 4 actual quadrants, and it looks like it's 4 individual ESCs. You actually even have, those little circular dots right there are to hook up a programmer, if you're programming the ESC via that way. So it looks pretty much just like 4 ESCs, put on one board, and I'm certain that there's some, interconnection between all the ESCs, but we're going to go ahead and run that. And here's some wiring for that I'm not going to use. This also came from Multi-Rotor Mania, the ESC. And I actually have 2 Pico cams here, and I'll be honest with you, I purchased these a while ago. I believe that this is a wide angle and this is somewhat more normal. So I'm going to hook probably both these up and just kind of decide which one I like. I believe I'll start with this one here. And just for the fun of it, and see it slides in. And like I said, I'm not entirely certain the purpose of this, but we'll figure it out. The video transmitter is a TS5823, 32 channel, 5.8, 200 milliwatts. And we'll actually wind up taking this off and soldering the antenna directly to it. I'm going to be running a Lemon RX satellite antenna, not antenna, receiver. And I may put some green RMRC fire LEDs on it. I really like these LEDs. They're very bright, and will run directly off of 3S or 4S. So no voltage regulator required there. And just some miscellaneous wires here. I could not find any places I ordered the tri-blade props in stock. So I went ahead and ordered some of these, but since then I have found some tri-blades. They are not here, so I'm going to start off with these, and hopefully I'm not sorry. And then I have, this is my very first micro, so I had to purchase some batteries. I have some ready-made RC 450 milliamp, and I purchased one 1000 milliamp, but I think this might be a tad big. So we'll run it and see how that works out. And that's going to be the build. So let's get to it. First thing is I'm going to prepare the video transmitter, the dip switches, and even the connector, to have the power and the video in and power out. Both of those have shrink wrap around them, so I can't plug the cord in, and I cannot change my frequency. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a little section around the dip switches. And might as well go ahead and heat up the soldering iron and take the SMA adapter off of this, because as I said, we are going to solder directly the antenna directly on here for size and weight constraints. So things will flow nice and easy. Ah, looky there. Okay. So, video transmitter is now ready. There is one more thing that we need to do with this, and you'll see there we have 5 volts out, and then audio, video, and ground, and then our supply voltage. I'm not going to have a microphone on this, so I am going to go ahead and remove the audio. Now the video transmitter is prepped. Okay, so here's the front of the quad, and the wires for the video transmitter are going to come out the front with the antenna coming out the rear. So this is going to go in here like this. And I'm going to make certain that this is on the flat side of the carbon fiber, not where they have the beveled screws. And I'm going to go ahead and just screw this in for test fitting. I just put 2 screws in. And you can see that those beveled screws and the beveling, it's pretty nice. Okay, I think I've actually decided to mount this not this way originally. Like I said, I think the pigtail would come out the back. I'm going to mount it like this here. Pigtail come out the side, and the rear motors can solder in here, and the same with the front motors. I could use a zip tie to kind of bring them to the center, and that's going to provide an awful lot of clearance. This is a Flip 32 2.5 from Ready to Fly Quads. And I do want to double check something here. You'll see this has the Spectrum plug on it. And I don't know that we want to keep that. No. So that Spectrum plug needs to come off, which is fine by me. Now that's done. So I'm just going to orient the motor outputs to be right there so I can keep this as short as possible. So that's going to plug in there, and then these wires are simply going to solder in right there. And there we go. So with that, I believe that we'll be able to set this right on top. Power it up and test our motor directions. Okay, sure enough, I wired it wrong. Here's the flip, and I did motor 1, 2, 3, 4, when really it should be motor, starting from the top down. It should have been from the bottom up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have to change those pins. And we'll try that again. Okay, so let's see if we got stuff right this time. Mark 3. There we go. Okay, so motor 3. Motor 4 is right. Motor 3. Okay. So motor 1 and 4 were correct. Motor 2 and 3 need to be reversed. Okay. So motor directions are correct. Now what we need to do from here is get our satellite hooked up. And at that point in time, we could fly at line of sight if we want. Which I might very well give that a try. We'll see. To mount the Lemon RX, you do have to decase it, and you have to depin it. And it will mount right on there like so, with some sticky tape. So we're going to go ahead and do this. As I said earlier, this is my first Mini, and I guess I didn't realize you had to do this, but it shouldn't be that bad. Put that screw in there so you don't lose it. Won't be that bad if I can figure out how to decase it. Looks like I had that screw and a little bit of glue on it. There is inside of a Lemon RX satellite, in case you've never opened one up like I have not. When you're unsoldering something, it always helps to have a little bit of fresh solder for the flux. It provides you greater surface area. That was easy. But before I put this on, what I might do is a little trick I do with my other satellites. Is I take a small zip tie and I cut the end of it off. And then I see how long it's going to be, and I cut this end off as well. Now what I'll do in this case is put it right here, and I'll take a little dab of hot glue to keep it in place, but then I'm going to take some heat shrink tubing and stick it on each side, and it provides some structure to the antenna. You know, the ground plane and the actual antenna side of it. So let me go get some heat shrink tubing wire. I bought this heat shrink tubing off of Amazon in a big pack, and it's all flattened out. You know, so it's not circular; it's smashed, and it makes it kind of hard to put on wires and various things like that. I wish they wouldn't have done that. Okay, so there's that. We'll take the heat gun. And now we have some structural strength to our antenna. Looks like the hot glue gun is ready. So I'm just going to take and run some right in that crack area there on both sides. Not a whole lot, doesn't need a whole lot. Just like so. Okay, now we need to solder it on. Okay. Now those are pretty close in there, so I'm going to take my multimeter. There's one. I think they're okay from a visual inspection, but I'm just going to double check here. Yeah, so nothing's touching, and my ground is indeed ground. Okay. So that looks good. Now one thing I noticed is that when I press this down and finally mount it in its final position, it's going to make soldering my VBAT and buzzer, pretty difficult. So I'm not going to mount that down just yet. I'm going to take some wire and I guess I'll make this for my VBAT, and then I'll take these and make this for my buzzer. So I'm going to go ahead and solder these wires in. Now the one thing that always gets me with the Flip 32 is that this bottom rail is always ground, except when it comes to the beeper. The bottom is negative, and the positive, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. The bottom rail is always negative, except for on the beeper. The beeper, the bottom, is the positive side of the beeper, and the top pin right there is the negative. And I believe that the way it works internally is it actually switches the negative on and off to activate the beeper. You can measure 5 volts between ground and the beeper positive pin at all times while the board's powered, of course. So be careful about that. You have positive on the bottom for the beeper and negative on the top. And then your VBAT, you definitely don't want to get that one wrong. It's just like everything else. The bottom rail is negative, and the top is going to be your positive. So for my VBAT, this mounts in here like this. Is how we're planning. I have to have power from right there to come over to my VBAT connector. So it's going to go from one side. There we go. It's going to go from my power terminals right here across and up into the VBAT. So it has to be able to span. Let's see if these will be long enough. Oh yeah. So I'm just going to use these so I actually have color-coded wires. Uh-oh. Lost a standoff. They were all here initially. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to pause the video, see if I can find my standoff. That's a bummer. I found it. I have a building hazard in my house, and it comes in the form of a green cheek conure. While I'm not looking, likes to pick up things like this, and luckily it was the other end of the table. So she must have came down and was playing with her new toy. Luckily she didn't take it too far. I need to figure out a strap and put some Velcro on these batteries. So let me go get Velcro and a battery strap. I like to put the hook side on my actual quads because it's more abrasive and I'm handling the batteries a lot more. So I'll put the loop side on the actual batteries, which is the soft, and the hook is the rough side. Okay, I have everything set up in my DX9. Well, not everything, but basically the way that I do it is this is my armed switch, disarmed. Over here I use this for a beeper. And I don't have mode selections. It's just always in rate mode. So my setup is pretty simple, on the quadcopters. But let's go ahead and bind this receiver. Okay.
Binding. DSMX 11 milliseconds. Bind complete.
Okay. At that time we got to bind, and probably had to do with me being too close to the receiver. I don't know why Spectrum does that, but that's the way it is. I'm certain you all know how to put on props, but I'm doing a complete build video, so I'm going to show you that too. Actually, I'm not going to get a crescent wrench. These prop nuts, I guess you call them, even though they're cone shaped like this, maybe a spinner, but they don't have the typical hole on top. And they don't work with the standard tools that I take to me at the field. And it happens to be that they're standard 5mm, so I'm not going to use them. I'm going to use some aluminum locking nuts. Take those off. And since we are building a micro, weight is important. Let's just do a little test here. Okay, those don't weigh much at all. 2 grams. Oops. That was not a valid test. Okay, those are 4 grams. Let's see what our aluminum lock nuts are. 0 grams. So, I think that's a good decision. Okay, and let's just double check. These props are on right. They are. Yep. And here it is. We'll see what our flying weight is with the battery, but without it. Actually, take the battery off. And it's 109 grams non-FPV. Put the battery on there. Mine turns out to be 153 grams. For the fun of it, let's do a premature test. There's the antenna. There's the video transmitter with, pigtail. Here is the camera. So that's probably a fair assessment. I'm looking at 168 grams flying weight. Without the battery, looking at 124 grams. Okay, I'm going to complete the build of the PD130. As you know, we did fly this line of sight, but I am going to take this apart, and we are going to put in a TS5823 video transmitter, as well as a little Pico camera I have from Readymade RC. And I'm not certain yet if I'm going to use the mount that the PD130 came with or not. So we have that out, and a couple rubber bands that were used to mount that with. So let's go ahead and tear this apart. Okay, now With the PD130, the desired way to do this is to actually take the antenna and stick it down through this hole, cut the connector off, and solder it directly onto the antenna, actually directly onto the video transmitter. So, okay, I think for size of the cable and also what I would use these on otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and take one of the 4-lobed 90-degree angle ones, cut the end off, and we'll see where we go. But in order to do that, we have to take these standoffs off. Well, in order to mount the video transmitter. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. Save this, who knows. If I learn how to do this, I might use this piece somewhere else. Go ahead and take that heat shrink off. Okay, so we have the outside braid, and obviously that is going to connect to the negative side of the actual transmitter. And the center is going to connect to that pin right there in the center. So we're going to solder that on there, solder those two braids on either side. Here we go. Now, what? I should not have tinned that yet. There we go. To make certain that we put it through the antenna slot first and then solder this on. And also, when you do this, make certain that the antenna is coming out on the top of the PD130 top plate. And you can tell by the beveled screw holes. You don't want it to come out, the opposite way, have the antenna sticking out this way, because then your beveled screws are not going to go in real nice. Yep, if I had this do again, I would not tin those cables right now, because they're being hard. Okay, now what I wanted was for these to come out and touch the negative side, but also have enough to wrap around and get the negative on the bottom too. And I think I've done that. Not very pretty, but I think it'll be functional. Okay. That's what mine looks like, at least. So let's set this aside for now. Go ahead and turn our soldering iron off. And what we need to do now is set some of these tools aside. And figure out our wiring harness. Okay, I have everything wired up. I did off camera set the dip switches to be what I think is on Fat Shark channel 1. And I have my goggles, so let's go ahead and power up my goggles. I am lucky enough to have one of the Forge diversity setups on my Fat Shark HDV2s. So hopefully this doesn't blow up. What do you know? I have video. So I need to figure out what is up or down on this camera. So right there is proper orientation. So the power or the wires exit up the top. Gotta remember that when I mount that in. So from here it looks like we just have to put this back together. And there's my completed PD130. Look at the scale. Okay, here we go. Okay, so it's 120 grams, ready to fly minus the battery. So let's go ahead and set the battery on here. And we go up to 168 grams. I'll have a flight video tomorrow. It is about midnight right now, so obviously I'm not going outside and flying. But I'll get that up as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, guys.